So this is a 4 reals Mexico City Mint, 1641 over O, so 1641 over 40 Assayer P, and this coin comes from the wreck of the Concepcion, which wrecked in 1641. So let's take a look at it. So looking at the reverse, pretty standard style of cross for this period, which is what I call an arrowed cross, meaning that the ends of the cross look more like an arrow, like an arrowhead, if you can see that there. Comes to kind of like a square or a triangle at the very end of that cross. It's something very common with this assayer in the very early period. And as you travel through the 40s up onto 1650 with this particular assayer, this style of cross kind of becomes a bit less accentuated by 1650, and then by 1654, 55, this type of cross completely disappears. But the very early coins, this is very much accentuated. So you may have 3 parts that are kind of jetting out, or just the 2, like this one here. The lions, although they are a bit worn on this particular coin, are actually very well engraved. They're very well made, as are the castles. Everything about the early period P coinage, which is Pedro Bezerra, by the way, is actually very attractive. Everything's typically very deeply sunk, so you get these cobs with a very smooth feel. You can't really feel the details of the coin just simply because of the metal displacement on the dies. Especially the coins of like the late 40s, early 1650s. I mean, the cross is so deeply sunk that it almost looks like the cross was hammered in after the coin was struck. It's hard to explain, but I'm sure if you just Google any Assayer P coinage from that period, the crosses are very deeply sunk. So on the obverse, very standard Habsburg shield, the part that's visible anyway. We have Castile-Leon in the upper left, and then we have Grenada here right in the center, and underneath we have Flanders and Tyrol. To the left we have Austria and Old Burgundy, and what we cannot see here, it would be Brabant, New Burgundy, and Naples, Sicily. And then we have just a bit of Aragon here, which are these lines, just these straight lines down. So overall, a pretty decent shield, a pretty decent strike. Fairly typical, being a bit off-struck to get the date here. So on the left we have our mint mark and assayer's marks. We have an OMP. I don't know why they did this backwards. I never understood this, but the O is the final letter of Mexico, of course, but that comes before the first letter. I don't know why the Spanish did that. They also did this with assayer marks as well. So Francisco de Morales, for example, you may see as OF. And then when he was in joint with the unknown Assayer D, that person was most likely named Diego, since the assayer's mark was OD, similar to Lima's Assayer OD, which was rendered the same way as an OD or a dot D. And then here we have the date. It's a little bit flat, but for the most part it's entirely visible, even though it is what you would consider partial. So you have the 1 here, 1, 6, 4, and this is the part that's a little tricky. And actually, when I got this coin, and it threw off the salvors, and it also threw off the auctioneer, it looks like it's just a 1 there. So 1, 6, 4, follow that right, I don't know what do you even call that, serif of the 4 over, and we have the bottom of our 1 right there. So there's the bottom of the 1, but underneath the 1 comes out like this and comes back up, we have a 0. So this is actually a 1640 with a 1 stamped over, so it's a 1641 over 40. Very standard, like typical, like kind of a red hue on this coin, which is kind of typical for these coins in this shipwreck. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a polishing ruse that they used on these coins to help clean them up, or if it's just something to do with this wreck in particular. They don't always have it, but oftentimes they have this reddish hue, and this is one of those coins that does. Anyway, yeah, Assayer Pedro Bezerra started in 1636, and his tenure ended in 1665 with his death. He was preceded by his brother Geronimo Bezerra, which is Assayer G, and that assayer would go on to work from 1666 until 1677. And yeah, after that you get Assayer L, and then J, and then D, R, G, and then final Assayer F. So yeah, that's it.